Hey there, in this video I'm going to show you how to make contour plots using matplotlib. The behavior and arguments to the contour function is actually a lot like the imshow function, so we'll be able to carry over a lot of knowledge from an earlier video. And in fact, I'm going to use the same data that I used in an earlier video. Just for the record, let me print out that data. We created an array that's 100 by 100 with the most negative value in the top left corner and the most positive value in the bottom right corner. At least if we look at the array itself. When we talked about imshow, we brought up the issue of how this is element 0, 0. If that corresponds to x equals 0, y equals 0, we probably actually want that most negative value in the bottom left corner of whatever we end up drawing. So let's just try a straight plot.contour. And so by default, what it's going to do is it's going to guess a good number of contours for us. It's going to draw them, and it's even going to color them. If we look here, we'll see we've got like a dark blue up through like a middle green and a yellow. It's actually the same color scaling that imshow uses by default. Close cousin of contour is contour F, which stands for filled contours. Personally, I don't use this function very much because if I want this kind of behavior, I would normally just use imshow. But if you want that flat shaded look, contour F is what you'd use. But from now on in this video, I'm just going to use regular contour, which just draws the lines. We can add a color bar to contour, just like we could with imshow. Like I said, a lot of stuff here will be the same as it was for imshow. We can see that this is actually not really great looking though. It does tell us what the colors represent, but it's just kind of awkward. So first thing is I don't really have that many contours here, so I might want to change the number of contours. I can do that with the keyword argument here called levels. So let's say I want 50 contours. I'll set levels equal to 50. Now instead of just drawing, it looks like about 7 lines, it draws 50 of them. So that looks a little bit better with the color bar, if you like that. Another option here, like this might be too many, is to give a list of, or some kind of sequence of what you want. You can use an A range in here. Let me just type these out by hand with a list. I'm going to do say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So if you want a lot of control over where the contours are drawn, you can do that. And so if we don't have these values, we don't get the contours there. And we got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. At this point, it's kind of silly to have the color bar anymore. So I'm going to take that out. In fact, with this kind of control here, especially if you're going to have a lot of contours, I prefer just to make the colors all the same. And so we can do that. The colors command, I'm going to do colors equals red, just to draw red. Usually I don't draw red. I would draw like white contours if I had a really dark plot, or black contours if I have, if I want black and white. But we can draw them in red. Let's play around here with levels. Like I said, this could be any sequence. It doesn't have to be a hand-coded list. So I could do a linspace here from NumPy. And we can linspace from, let's say, let's go -60 to 60. And let's do 11 steps. An odd number of steps here is going to guarantee that I hit the middle point. So it'll give me a contour at 0, which is just something I might want here. So let's plot that. And one thing we'll notice here is when you have this fixed color, the negative values end up as dashed lines, which is kind of a nice effect. Surely there's some way to override that if we dig into the documentation, but there's actually quite a lot of it. So I'll leave that for you to try to figure out if you want to really take control over the styling. But I think this is a nice effect, especially if you combine it with an imshow. So let's do that. Let's make an imshow of the data, and then let's draw the contours on top of the imshow. It gives a really nice visual effect. So I'm going to imshow the data. I'm going to use seismic color map, which I think works good when you have positive and negative data that's equally spaced around 0. We'll do vmin is -100, vmax is 100. We don't actually have to have these for this particular array because all the values are well behaved, but just in case, we'll put those there and it gives us a little bit more control. I want to put the origin in the lower left corner, and I want the extent of the data to represent, say, -4 to 4, -3 to 3. So this is actually like the very same command we had at the end of the imshow video. Draw a color bar. And let's look at that just as a reminder of what this looks like before we draw the contours on top. Okay, so there's our data. You'll notice if I set origin equals lower with the imshow, it draws this light diagonal from top left to bottom right. It's actually the same direction as the contours. So this is telling us something really important. That contour puts 0, 0 in the bottom left corner, like just about everything else in the world. Imshow is the only one that sort of likes to do this weird thing where it defaults to 0, 0 being the top left corner, and we have to override that with origin equals lower. And if you're wondering, why do they do this? It's if you're trying to show a literal image. If you're showing a literal image where like you just want to visualize the array itself, then you do want 0, 0 to be the top left because that's where the array puts 0, 0 when you print it out. But if you're trying to represent something mathematical, you almost always want origin equals lower. All right, so we had this from effectively last time. Now I want to add some contours on top of it. So I'll do a call to plot.contour data. I don't want to do a CMap here. You can do CMaps for contours to color them, but it would just get lost if I drew the same colors on top. So instead, I'm just going to use the color command, or colors command, and I'm going to say black. I think black will show up pretty nice. We can play around with this if black doesn't look good. White's not great, but we could do like gray or yellow, something that's going to have good contrast. We're going to set the levels. We could use the default levels, they're probably just fine, but let's just try to do something with more control. So we'll do, like we did a cell above, we'll do a linspace, and let's go. In this case, let's do the whole range, -100 to +100, and we'll do 11 of them. And one more command we're going to want here is we're going to want to set the extent. Actually, let me show you what happens if I don't set extent, because that's an easy mistake to make. Okay, so first of all, whoops, here we drew 11 contours. Let's see, did they show up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Great, because 10 and 11 would actually be in these corners here. They're lost at that. They're like 1 pixel each. But more importantly, you see what happened right here? Our imshow is teeny tiny down here. And why is that? Because we set its limits to be -4 to 4, -3 to 3. And we didn't tell contour to use those same limits. So contour is trying to stretch itself 0 to 100. The imshow is trying to be down here, and so they didn't line up well. The solution is to add extent to contour. It acts just the same as it does in imshow. And I want to use the same extent, of course. -4 to 4, -3 to 3. So now if we plot that, we get a nice final result where we have our imshow for the coloring in the background. We have the contours drawn on top. We get this nice negative dashed for the negative values, just to really reinforce that these values are negative, these values are positive. So in this video, we saw how to make contour plots. We saw some of the similarities in differences compared to imshow, and we saw how you can draw a contour plot on top of an imshow.